From ABC News, World News Saturday. Substituting for Carol Simpson, here's Forrest Sawyer.
Good evening. It has been another day of fast-breaking and historic events in the Soviet Union. Under pressure from reformers, Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev today resigned as General Secretary of the Communist Party, formally separating the party from the government for the first time since the revolution 74 years ago. At the same time, the party's decision-making body, the Central Committee, has reportedly agreed to disband. We have several reports, beginning with ABC's Jim Laurie in Moscow.
Not long after his appearance at the funeral, Mikhail Gorbachev went into consultations with advisors, which resulted in the dramatic announcements. A Soviet television newsreader later revealed the official word.
Having analyzed the position of the Central Committee of the Communist Party and the Politburo during the attempted coup, we must admit that both bodies sided with the conspirators. Therefore, I order that the Central Committee must be disbanded, and as a consequence I no longer consider it possible to continue to carry out the functions of Party General Secretary.
At the same time, Gorbachev ordered all Communist Party property around the country to be turned over to local governments. This had already happened here in Moscow, where party headquarters were closed under orders of the Moscow City Council. Gorbachev also reaffirmed orders issued earlier by Boris Yeltsin, outlawing all party activity in the KGB and the armed forces. With the effective dismantling of the Communist Party hierarchy, Gorbachev now retains only the increasingly powerless position of Soviet president, and he appears to have abandoned his efforts to reform the communists. For Gorbachev, the realization that he must resign came as a shock.
Actually, I would say that it's more than a political problem. It's just a human problem. It's a problem of betrayal.
Former Foreign Minister Edward Shevardnadze, who quit the party last year, said today Gorbachev took the step too late to salvage his political position.
I said long ago, and I told him personally to take this step. I'm sure if he'd have done it a year ago, he would have come out a winner.
Gorbachev, in his role as president, took further moves which showed how close he had come to the positions of Boris Yeltsin. He appointed Yeltsin's prime minister, Ivan Selayev, as prime minister of a new Soviet government. He also set up a new governing committee composed of all reformers. All this happened as Gorbachev came face to face with the people who freed him from captivity. It was apparent in the streets that no support remained for the Communist Party, and this week's coup had escalated the party's disintegration faster than anyone had imagined. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Moscow.
There was another first today. For the first time since the 1917 revolution, the Communist Party's daily newspaper, Pravda, failed to appear. Its publication was suspended by Russian leader Boris Yeltsin. The Communist Party was collapsing before Gorbachev resigned, and his recognition of the obvious is an effort to hold the country together. But can it work? Here's ABC's Rick Inderfirth.
Mikhail Gorbachev's resignation may keep his own political fortunes alive for now, but it is unlikely to slow the process of disintegration that is accelerating throughout the Soviet Union. Today in the Ukraine, the country's second largest republic, lawmakers declared independence from the Union and set a December vote to ratify their decision. Also today in Lithuania, President Vytautas Landsbergis vowed to take control of all Soviet troops in his republic. A pro-independence rally was held across from a military garrison to underscore that demand. In other regions, more signs of a country coming apart. In the Southern Republic of Azerbaijan, a demonstration celebrating the collapse of this week's coup attempt was broken up by riot police. And in Moldavia, protesters took out their frustrations on the intellectual godfathers of communism, Marx and Engels. The republic has already declared its intention to leave the Union. And what about the future of the Communist Party itself? It could change its name, renew its program, continue as an organization devoted to socialist, not Bolshevik values. Or as a former aide to President Gorbachev says,
well, I guess the party will disappear pretty quickly. I mean, they might get organized, but it would be a very small group. Then the party will gradually disappear from the political stage.
And opponents of the party believe that would be appropriate. As one put it, the Soviet Communist Party has accomplished its historic mission. It has shown the whole world how not to live. Rick Inderfirth, ABC News, Moscow.
Former U.S. Ambassador to the Soviet Union, Jack Matlock, is with us this evening, as he has been throughout the week. Mr. Matlock, Gorbachev is pedaling just as fast as he can. Do you think he can stay on the bicycle?
I doubt it. I think he should have taken this decision a few months ago, and certainly no later than yesterday. He's still behind the power curve, unfortunately.
What does it mean, though, for the pace of reform and the direction of it?
Well, I think the reform is going to go very rapidly now. I think there's absolutely no question about that. I think it cannot... they're going to have to, the officials are going to have to try to keep up with the people and their demands, and that means that reform will be, I'd say, at a forced pace.
Well, for Boris Yeltsin, an opportunity. He has announced today that his Russian Republic is taking over all government communications. Now, traditionally, that's been handled by the Kremlin.
That's correct.
So this means that Yeltsin will become increasingly powerful.
This is very important. In fact, I think what we're seeing is a very rapid transition to Russia as a successor state of the Soviet Union. I think today is also the beginning of the end of the Soviet Union as we have known it.
Well, that's interesting. Do you think that things is there a danger they'll go spinning off too quickly?
Obviously there are problems, but I don't think it's going to spin off too quickly. Ukraine declared independence today. That's very important. I think that they will simply have to start negotiating a new sort of relationship, but it will not be one like the past.
What does it mean for U.S. foreign policy now?
Well, I think we have to pay more and more attention to the republics. I felt this for a long time. I think we should begin to recognize the independence of those as this independence is recognized. We should get missions there, and we should deal. It's going to be much more complicated, but we're going to need to deal with all of them.
Dealing with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Former Ambassador to the Soviet Union, Jack Matlock, thank you very much, sir. Now, before President Gorbachev's historic announcement today, he did attend a funeral for 3 people killed by Soviet troops during the coup attempt. And Gorbachev told the crowd there would be no forgiveness for the leaders of the plot. And he declared the victims, who have become symbols of the resistance, to be heroes of the Soviet Union. ABC's Sheila Kast was there.
Moscow bid farewell to the martyrs of the coup. Images of 3 young men killed by Soviet troops floated above the crowd. Vladimir Usov, a business worker. Ilya Khrushchevsky, an architect. Dmitry Komar, an Afghan war veteran. Emotions ran high at the end of a week of tension for the whole country. The funeral procession stopped where the 3 were killed, defending the headquarters of the Russian Republic. The spot has become a shrine. At the headquarters, or White House, Boris Yeltsin paid his tribute.
I bow to the mothers and fathers and ask them to forgive me, your president, for failing to defend them, to prevent this from happening.
The new United States ambassador, Bob Strauss, reflected his country's interest.
The American people, during this past week, shared the shock of the Russian people at the attack on their liberties and shared their joy at the collapse of the effort to reimpose tyranny.
Heading the procession were veterans of the Afghan war.
Now it's clear once and for all somber-minded people that that we have to get rid of communism once and for all.
Soviet communism was overshadowed by images of the Russian past. President Gorbachev has named these martyrs heroes of the Soviet Union, the highest medal of valor. Their sacrifice is remembered here. Sheila Kast, ABC News, Moscow.
Moscow is a town full of rumors these days, some of them that President Gorbachev's wife, Raisa, has been hospitalized. Well, now a spokesman says Mrs. Gorbachev is ill, but he would not comment on what might be wrong. Russian Prime Minister Ivan Tselayev has told ABC News that when he saw Mrs. Gorbachev, this was just after the coup failed, she was suffering from partial paralysis and from slurred speech. In his mind, signs that she could have suffered a stroke. President Gorbachev has said the ordeal was particularly hard on his wife. Coming up, reaction from the White House. And later in the broadcast, former East Bloc countries take another look at their own communist hardliners. And a showdown in Wichita, Kansas, over abortion.
World News Saturday. Brought to you by Dairy Ease.
When 1 in 4 adults looks at dairy food, their stomach says stop. Say no now or pay later. Antacids aren't made for this problem, called lactose intolerance. But new Dairy Ease is. It's not an antacid, but a natural nutritional supplement that helps comfortable digestion of ice cream, cheese, and milk. Now enjoy dairy food as naturally as everyone else with pleasant-tasting, chewable new Dairy Ease.
At last, I'm eating a carrot, thanks to Super Polygrip with its new Ultra Hold formula.
Now holds dentures ultra tight, stronger and longer than ever. New Ultra Hold formula, the best grip Polygrip has ever made.
Today, there's a prescription strength cure for athlete's foot. Lotrimin AF, the #1 prescribed athlete's foot medication available without a prescription. Lotrimin AF, the prescription strength cure for athlete's foot.
The Bush administration welcomed Mikhail Gorbachev's resignation from the Communist Party leadership today as, quote, another step forward, but not a big enough step to warrant the U.S. opening its wallet to bail out the ailing Soviet economy. Ann Compton has the latest from the president's vacation home in Kennebunkport, Maine.
As the news was breaking in Moscow, President Bush's early morning golf game in Maine was interrupted twice by National Security Advisor Scowcroft and telephone calls from Washington. The president had been surprised Gorbachev did not make his break with the party days ago when he was restored to power in Moscow. Now that Gorbachev has, President Bush welcomed the development as one that should speed up the reforms Gorbachev must make before the U.S. will step forward with any additional economic aid.
We want to help. Eventually there may be a way we can help with money, but before that we've got to see reforms in the Soviet Union. We got to know who we're dealing with in these ministries. There's just a lot of things that have to happen before we can move forward. But the very fact that this coup has taken place, in my view, removes some of the roadblocks to economic reform that have been required. So let's just see how it develops.
The White House wants the Western democracies to present a united front and not reward Gorbachev financially quite yet. The Prime Minister of Canada is due here tomorrow. Britain's Prime Minister is coming next week. President Bush will use both visits to signal Moscow that the faster Gorbachev works, the faster he can expect dividends from the West. Ann Compton, ABC News, Kennebunkport.
Calls for more aid to the Soviet Union are also coming from the very countries the Soviets used to control with sometimes brutal force. These former members of the East Bloc want to ensure that the Soviet Union stays strong and safely away from their own fledgling free markets. ABC's Jerry King reports.
Many East Europeans have had their own bitter experience with a Soviet military takeover. So when the hardliners lost in Moscow, in Prague and across what was once communist Eastern Europe, people reacted with joy and relief. Yet afterwards, many said they never worried their own hardliners might try it. Here's how one Pole put it.
It is not possible to change back anything. I don't think so. The danger was so big, so high.
East European governments thought it was.
It made more visible the necessity of Poland's links with the West, including North America.
Primarily, East European governments want economic links. They know their sputtering economies put their own survival at risk. They're using the coup as a bargaining chip.
There is a definite Western interest in reinforcing democracy and free market economy in Central Europe, especially as you must expect things to be chaotic in the Soviet Union still for some time.
As before, the lead voice in the call for the West to think again about aid to the Soviets comes from here in Germany. To get the Soviet okay for German unification, Helmut Kohl had pledged the Soviets $35 billion. Though much of it is to pay to get Soviet troops out of eastern Germany. Kohl says Germany cannot afford to do more itself and wants others to help. And now there are indications others are receptive, despite America's continuing reluctance. Jerry King, ABC News, Berlin.
One report today provides a note of irony in the events of the past several days. During the coup attempt, a Russian factory received an order from Moscow for 250,000 pairs of handcuffs. This according to a Soviet newspaper, which was unable to learn just who it was that was urgently requesting those handcuffs. In a moment, abortion protesters, pro-choice and pro-life, face off in Wichita, Kansas.
Evidently, some people have money to burn. Why else would they pay an outrageous fee to carry a simple credit card when they could carry the Discover card, the card that charges no annual fee, yet pays cash back on every charge, which means it puts money into your pocket instead of burning a hole in it. It pays to Discover.
First, we created the LS400 luxury sedan. Now we've taken everything we've learned and condensed it. Introducing the Lexus ES300. All the performance of a sports sedan, all the luxury of a Lexus.
Everybody needs some money sometime. Everybody needs some cash sometime.
When you need money fast, only Western Union can get it to over 16,000 locations in minutes. Nobody else even comes close.
Just told me my sometime is
Western
now.
Union, the fastest way to send money.
Now you can ask Angela Lansbury about Bufferin.
Angela, you've said on TV that Bufferin is effective pain relief. Is it really strong aspirin?
I'll say it is. Extra strength Bufferin's the strongest dose of aspirin you can buy. 1,000 milligrams.
Angela, how can Bufferin be so strong if it has buffers?
That's a good question. I've learned the buffers don't weaken it. They just help prevent aspirin's stomach upset. Bufferin's great pain relief.
Shouldn't you discover the strength of Bufferin?
Anticipating another violent eruption, hundreds of New York City police converged on the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn today. They are hundreds of protesters, led by the Reverend Al Sharpton, marched almost 2 miles to air their grievances against the Orthodox Jews who live in the neighborhood. The march was peaceful, but members of the black community are saying they still have not received justice after a Hasidic Jew hit and killed a black child when his car ran a red light on Monday. A Jewish law student was stabbed to death in retaliatory incidents afterwards. Wichita, Kansas, the protest was over abortion. After 6 weeks of pro-life rallies outside city abortion clinics, thousands of pro-choice activists decided it was time to mount a protest of their own. ABC's Charles Thomas is in Wichita.
What do we want? Right. When do we want it? Right.
Today's rally by 5,000 abortion supporters was the largest held by either side since the Wichita controversy began.
And we were going to go toe-to-toe with these bullies. We're going to do it in the courts and the Congress. And we will win. We will not go back.
The rally was a response to 6 weeks of daily demonstrations by Operation Rescue. The national group has blocked the entrances to abortion clinics in Wichita, and more than 2,500 protesters have been arrested. Its leaders say today's rally by abortion supporters is a sign that Operation Rescue is making progress.
We are setting their agenda, and whatever side is setting the agenda is the side which is making more gains than the other.
But supporters of abortion rights say more Americans have been turned off by the tactics of Operation Rescue.
They have engaged in violence and outrageous behavior, and they're trying to impose their religious views on a nation that will not tolerate that.
Abortion rights groups here say this summer they have attracted more members and money, thanks to their opponents. Charles Thomas, ABC News, Wichita.
One more note from overseas, the Middle East. For the first time in its history, Iraq's parliament has voted to permit the formation of a multi-party system. You remember that after Iraq's crushing defeat in the Gulf War and the violent Kurdish uprising, Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein did promise political reform. Until now, the only party allowed in Iraq was Saddam's Ba'ath Socialist Party. When we come back, an artist's love for the green.
There it is. Yeah.
Did you know that when Alexander Graham Bell was about to invent the telephone, he stopped work because he ran out of money?
Today at AT&T, we understand how important money is to a small business. So we developed AT&T Pro Watts, our discount calling plan that gives you AT&T quality at extremely competitive prices. At AT&T, almost half our business comes from small business. When you succeed, we succeed.
To get rid of her gray, my wife can spend 40 minutes. But I discovered this 5-minute hair coloring.
The revolutionary discovery called Just for Men from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men and in 5 minutes shampoo out.
Gray is blended away. The look of my natural color is back in 5 minutes. That was me, and it won't fade or wash out.
My hair takes forever, but you look great in just 5 minutes.
The look of your natural color in just 5 minutes. With Just for Men.
Why put up with glasses that just don't fit? LensCrafters has so many ways to fit your snug points. Like snug fit pads that flex to comfortably hug your nose. LensCrafters, better fit for greater comfort. In about an hour.
When you get gas pain, which would you choose? Your antacid or Gas-X, the tablet made for gas pain? It's extra strength, 100% simethicone to get rid of gas faster than your antacid. Fight gas right with Gas-X.
This morning, as guests at the 5-star Arizona Biltmore are tempted to breakfast, the fine brewed coffee usually served has been secretly switched to Folgers Crystals. Does it have the fresh brewed taste and aroma these guests expect?
They were just sort of waft me out of bed. Tastes like fresh ground beans.
Would help wake us up, get us going. It's Folgers Crystals.
Happy John. I would have thought it was brewed. Is the word elegant? Can that be used for coffee?
Mountain-grown Folgers Crystals. Coffee rich enough to be served in America's finest restaurants.
I'll drink to that.
Time to check in on sports with Ray Gandolf in New York. He's got a look at a champion golfer with an artistic flair and, of course, today's sports highlights. Ray.
Thank you, Forrest. No surprise today at the Little League Championship game in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Pan Chi Chang of Chinese Taipei struck out 14 batters in 6 innings and shut out the kids from Danville, California on 3 hits. For the grown-ups, Cecil Fielder hit his 36th home run, most in the big leagues, as Detroit beat Seattle and is now tied with Toronto in the American League East, the Blue Jays falling just short at home against the Yankees. There are only 11 members of the LPGA Hall of Fame because a lady golfer has to win 30 tournaments, at least 2 of the major tournaments, to qualify. Number 12 will almost certainly be Amy Alcott, and nobody deserves it more. Here's why.
Oh, get in the hole. I get pure joy out of hitting great golf shots. I've always viewed myself as an artist. The ability to play shots, right to left, left to right. This artistry, this beauty, this ballet dance motion.
Not the score.
Not the score.
Amy Alcott, artist, has been hitting great golf shots on the Pro Tour for 18 years, and for a dozen years before that as an amateur and precocious kid. When she won the Dinah Shore tournament last March for the 3rd time and jumped in the lake afterwards, she was just 1 tournament win short of automatic entry into the LPGA Hall of Fame. But that win has been a long time coming.
It's a pain in the you-know-what for me because I'd like to get this over with so I can kind of go on with my life. Let's face it, there's other things in life. I love dogs. I love Scottish Terriers. I'd love to raise them. My big fantasy in life is to be a judge in the Westminster Dog Show. I love to paint. I go up on my roof and I throw paint. And I make all kinds of wild, abstract creations. And I think that's an expression of myself.
Whether it's the final round of a big tournament or a Pro-Am round with a bunch of the guys, Amy Alcott expresses herself.
Beautiful.
She once won 4 tournaments with a putter she picked up at a miniature golf course. But her irons are the same ones she began the tour with nearly 2 decades ago.
They become like a violin or whatever. To me, I have confidence in them. I just use equipment that I'm comfortable with. And if I see something in a barrel over in your garage, and I ask you, Ray, I really like this old beat-up club, Hell, I might go out and win the U.S. Open with it.
The little racehorse, as she has been called, was in the hunt in the U.S. Open last month, right up to the final holes. Not having a reporter's old beat-up clubs in her bag, she didn't win it. But she will win again. She will enter the Hall of Fame. Amy Alcott is too good an artist to miss.
As long as I know I can play well and I can win, and I'm still a little racehorse, I'm the luckiest person in the world. I've had a life I used to say most 18-year-olds would dream of. I still say I've had a life most 35-year-olds would dream of.
Amy Alcott has missed a couple of tournaments recently, nursing an injured wrist, but she'll be back, with or without my old beat-up club. Forrest?
Thank you, Ray. In a moment, we will recap the day's events in the Soviet Union.
At night, I soak my dentures. In the morning, I use toothpaste. At night, I soak.
Wake up. All you need is denture cream. In just 90 seconds, denture cream gets dentures nearly twice as clean. So why pay for two products? All you need is denture cream.
Red Devil enamel. You can always count on its durable finish. Harder than ordinary paints, its beauty lasts and lasts. Red Devil enamel for the finish of a lifetime.
Dear Thompsons, midway through waterproofing, I ran out of Thompson's water seal and finished with another brand. Then it rained. You could see the difference. Thompson's worked. The other side looked like I hadn't used a thing. Nothing tops Thompson's. Sincerely, Marcia Jackalone.
Do what the pros do. Hit your receiver and call now for the Domino's Pizza Kickoff Deal. 2 medium cheese pizzas with 4 servings of Coca-Cola Classic or Diet Coke for just $9.99. And get free NFL quarterback trading cards.
Only from Domino's!
David Brinkley here. On our This Week program Sunday, our own Secretary of State and Boris Yeltsin, Secretary of State, both interviewed for the first time since the Russian coup.
Once again, our top story, Soviet President Gorbachev, through a spokesman on Soviet television, announced today he has resigned as head of the Communist Party, and he has also recommended the party's Central Committee dissolve itself. At the same time, Gorbachev ordered that all Communist Party property to be seized and handed over to the local governments. Of course, ABC News will continue to monitor events in the Soviet Union, and as events warrant, we will bring you updates. The rapidly changing situation in the Soviet Union, as you heard, the topic tomorrow on This Week with David Brinkley. Guests do include Secretary of State James Baker. That is World News Saturday. I'm Forrest Sawyer, and for all of us here at ABC News, good night.
From Washington, this has been World News Saturday.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Saturday